Tonight, we drift into the underlying intelligence of nature itself. Ecology is the story of how life connects, how forests breathe, how rivers carry food, and how even the smallest creature can shape the fate of the planet. It is a vast, living web of exchange and renewal, older than language, and still miraculously unfolding around us. In tonight's exploration, we will wander through hidden networks beneath the soil, swim through invisible migrations in the sea, and listen carefully for the quiet conversations that bind every species together. You will hear how life engineers balance from chaos, and how the planet's pulse can be felt in every grain of earth, every drop of rain, and every breath you take. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let the wonders of nature cradle your thoughts. Let's begin. Earth's atmosphere literally rises and falls as life breathes in and out. As spring unfurls across the northern hemisphere, forests awaken and oceans bloom with life. Every leaf, every plankton cell draws carbon from the air, transforming sunlight into energy and releasing oxygen in return. The planet's entire atmosphere subtly shifts as this pulse of photosynthesis expands. Months later, as autumn spreads and leaves fall, that carbon flows back into the air through decay and respiration. The atmosphere swells and contracts in perfect rhythm with life itself. Scientists can trace this heartbeat of the biosphere from satellites, watching the living planet inhale and exhale each year. It is not just trees that join this rhythm. Every green organism that ever faced the sun contributes to it. Even the faintest algae drifting through the sea play their part, helping to shape the breath that binds ocean and sky into one connected world. Forests manufacture their own weather systems. Each morning, as sunlight warms the canopy, trees release invisible streams of vapor through their leaves. That moisture drifts upward, cooling as it rises, until it gathers into clouds. The forest becomes an engine of rain, a self-sustaining loop that keeps its own skies alive. In vast regions like the Amazon, this process is so powerful that the rain falling in one valley may have been exhaled from leaves hundreds of kilometers away. When deforestation interrupts the cycle, the skies above grow drier, the clouds thin, and the balance falters. Forests are not simply shaped by climate, they shape it in return. Even a single tree cools the air around it, creates shade, and seeds the next cloud. In every drop of rain that falls upon a leaf, there is a memory of countless others rising before it, repeating the planet's oldest rhythm. Trees exchange information and nutrients through underground networks. Beneath the forest floor lies a vast web of fungi, linking root to root. Through these mycorrhizal networks, trees share sugars, minerals, and even distress signals. When one tree is shaded, others may send it nutrients. When pests attack, chemical warnings ripple through the soil, prompting neighbors to strengthen their defenses. Older, larger trees often serve as hubs, channeling resources to younger saplings through invisible filaments finer than threads of silk. Scientists call this the wood wide web, and it operates with remarkable precision, adjusting flows according to need. The soil beneath a forest is not silent. It hums with communication, cooperation, and life. Even dying trees sometimes send their final stores of carbon into the network, passing energy to the next generation before they fall. Hidden beneath our feet, intelligence spreads through darkness in quiet, living strands that sustain entire worlds above. Coral reefs build limestone skyscrapers teeming with hidden cities of life. Each coral polyp is a tiny animal, that constructs a hard skeleton around itself, and together millions form vast reef structures rising from the sea floor. Over centuries, these organisms build fortresses of limestone that can stretch for thousands of kilometers. Within these coral citadels live fish, crustaceans, worms, mollusks, and countless microscopic species that depend on their shelter. Reefs are among the most diverse habitats on Earth, rivaling rainforests in complexity. They buffer coastlines from waves, nurture young marine life, and recycle nutrients with astonishing efficiency. Yet their beauty hides fragility. A small change in temperature or acidity can break the delicate partnership between coral and its symbiotic algae, causing bleaching and loss. Still, many reefs regenerate if the ocean's balance returns, rebuilding stone by stone through the patient labor of life. They are living monuments to endurance beneath the sea. The Amazon creates so much vapor, it seeds its own rainfall. When the morning sun touches the canopy, billions of leaves release water into the sky. The vapor drifts upward, forming vast towers of cloud that gather, darken, and fall again as rain. This cycle repeats day after day, sustaining one of the most vital ecosystems on Earth. The Amazon's trees collectively produce more moisture than the river itself carries to the sea. Without this endless exchange, the region would dry into savanna within decades. The forest literally makes its own climate, cooling the atmosphere while drawing in winds that carry new rains from the Atlantic. Scientists have found that even the scent of the forest, made of volatile organic compounds released by plants, helps seed clouds by forming particles around which droplets condense. The Amazon is not only a home for life, it is an atmospheric engine that keeps the skies alive. Termite colonies quietly alter the global balance of methane. In the hidden chambers of their mounds, termites cultivate microbes that break down wood and plant matter. This process releases methane, a potent greenhouse gas, in amounts that rival emissions from many larger animals. Across tropical regions, billions of termite colonies constantly digest organic debris, recycling nutrients while influencing atmospheric chemistry. Their activity can increase or decrease global methane levels depending on temperature, rainfall, and vegetation type. The complex ventilation of termite mounds regulates the gas flow, using temperature gradients and intricate tunnels that mimic engineered systems of surprising sophistication. Despite their small size, termites collectively weigh more than all the mammals of many continents combined. They are quiet engineers, shaping soil fertility and altering the air above forests, all while maintaining an ecological balance that has endured for millions of years. Dormant desert seeds can wait centuries for the perfect rain. Beneath dry sands and cracked earth lie tiny seeds that have slept through entire eras of drought. These resilient capsules contain life in suspension, guarded by shells that resist heat, light, and decay. When the rare desert rains finally arrive, water softens their coats and triggers hidden chemistry that reawakens them. Within hours, shoots emerge, and entire landscapes transform into sudden fields of color. Some plants complete their entire life cycle in a matter of days before the desert closes again. Others leave behind new seeds to wait for the next miracle of rain. Scientists have found viable seeds in ancient desert soils dating back centuries, proving that time itself can be endured in perfect stillness. The desert may seem lifeless, yet beneath its silence, a future forest or meadow waits patiently for a single unpredictable storm. Arctic permafrost locks away carbon, older than human civilization. Beneath frozen tundra lies a time capsule of ancient life. Layer upon layer of organic matter, including plants, roots, and microbial remains, has accumulated over tens of thousands of years, trapped in ice that rarely thaws. This frozen vault stores immense amounts of carbon, sealed away since the last ice age. As global temperatures rise, the permafrost begins to soften, awakening long-dormant microbes that consume the ancient material and release carbon dioxide and methane into the air. The process could accelerate climate change, transforming frozen ground into a source of greenhouse gases rather than a sink. Yet even as it melts, the permafrost reveals preserved ecosystems, mammoth bones, and seeds that still germinate after millennia. It is both a warning and a window into Earth's deep history, holding the breath of past worlds beneath its frost and snow. A teaspoon of soil can hold more living things than there are humans on Earth. Hidden within every pinch of soil is a metropolis of microscopic life. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and countless unseen species form an ecosystem so dense and complex that 1 gram may contain billions of individual organisms. These tiny engineers break down organic matter, recycle nutrients, and build the structure that roots depend on. Without them, plants would starve, water would stagnate, and decay would halt. Soil life even produces antibiotics and natural chemicals that influence plant health. Scientists estimate that most soil species remain undescribed, their DNA forming a living library beneath our feet. In every garden, field, or forest floor lies a community as intricate as any coral reef. When soil is healthy, it breathes, filters, and supports everything above it, quietly sustaining the visible world through the constant work of invisible hosts. Entire ecosystems thrive in complete darkness around volcanic vents. At the bottom of the ocean, where sunlight never reaches, cracks in the seafloor release mineral-rich water heated by Earth's inner fire. Around these hydrothermal vents, life has invented an entirely different way to survive. Instead of using sunlight, microbes extract energy from chemicals like hydrogen sulfide, forming the base of a food web that includes giant tube worms, crabs, clams, and even ghostly fish. Temperatures near the vents can swing from near freezing to above boiling in only a few meters, yet the organisms here flourish. These deep communities prove that life does not depend on light, only on chemistry and adaptation. Some scientists believe similar systems might exist on icy moons such as Europa or Enceladus. In the silent dark, far below the waves, Earth demonstrates how life can bloom wherever energy and persistence meet in the deep unknown. Some fungi use radiation as a source of energy. Deep within the ruins of the Chernobyl reactor, scientists discovered black fungi thriving on walls still emitting radiation. These fungi contain pigments called melanin, similar to those in human skin, which appear to convert ionizing radiation into usable chemical energy. The process, called radiosynthesis, allows them to grow in conditions too extreme for most life. Laboratory experiments confirmed that certain species increase their growth rates when exposed to radiation, hinting that they can harness energy directly from it. Similar fungi have been found on the International Space Station, surviving in high radiation environments far beyond Earth. The discovery suggests that life can adapt to conditions once considered completely inhospitable. It even opens the possibility that organisms on other planets could use radiation as a power source, thriving in places where sunlight cannot reach, but cosmic energy flows freely through stone and shadow. Beavers engineer landscapes that increase biodiversity. When beavers build dams, they transform fast-flowing streams into calm ponds surrounded by wetlands. This act of construction slows water movement, allowing sediments to settle and creating habitats for insects, fish, amphibians, and birds. The ponds retain water during dry seasons, supporting plant growth long after surrounding soils have dried. Over time, beaver activity increases the diversity of species in an area by shaping new ecological niches. Their dams also reduce flooding downstream by storing water and releasing it gradually. Even after beavers abandon a site, the landscape continues to benefit for decades, cycling between pond, meadow, and forest in a natural rhythm of renewal. Researchers now use beaver reintroduction programs as tools for ecosystem restoration. In many regions, the return of these animals has brought back entire wetlands, proving that one small species can reshape entire watersheds for the better. Prairie roots grow deeper than most trees' branches reach upward. Grassland plants invest most of their energy below the surface, sending roots several meters into the ground. These dense networks anchor soil, store nutrients, and retain water even during severe droughts. In some tallgrass prairie species, the root systems extend more than 5 meters down, creating a hidden forest beneath the plains. This underground biomass stores vast amounts of carbon, making grasslands powerful carbon sinks. When prairies are plowed or overgrazed, that carbon is released back into the atmosphere. Restoring native grasses reverses the process, locking carbon away again through new root growth. The depth of prairie roots also stabilizes landscapes, preventing erosion and allowing ecosystems to recover quickly after fires. Beneath the open horizon, this unseen architecture sustains everything above it, forming one of the most extensive and resilient living networks on the planet. Mangroves filter salt and breathe through their roots like snorkels. Mangrove trees thrive where few others can survive, in coastal swamps flooded by seawater. Their roots grow upward or outward from the mud, forming dense networks that trap sediment and reduce wave energy. Special root structures called pneumatophores protrude from the surface like snorkels, allowing the trees to take in oxygen even when submerged. Inside their cells, complex filtration systems remove excess salt, which is then excreted through the leaves or stored in older tissues. These adaptations create stable, nutrient-rich environments that support fish nurseries, crabs, and a variety of birds. Mangroves also protect coastlines from storms and prevent erosion by holding soil in place. They are among the most efficient carbon storage ecosystems on Earth, capable of locking away large amounts of carbon in both their wood and the sediments they build beneath the water. Whale waste fertilizes plankton that feeds the entire ocean. Whales play a crucial role in marine nutrient cycles. When they feed in deep water and return to the surface to breathe, they release waste that is rich in iron and nitrogen. These nutrients act as fertilizers for phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that form the base of the ocean's food web. Phytoplankton absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis and produce much of the oxygen we breathe. As plankton populations grow, so do the fish and marine animals that depend on them. This process, known as the whale pump, enhances ocean productivity across vast regions. Before commercial whaling, the world's whale populations likely supported significantly greater plankton abundance and carbon capture. Restoring whale numbers could therefore help combat climate change by strengthening the biological mechanisms that keep the ocean alive and balanced. Each night, billions of deep-sea creatures migrate toward the surface and back again. In the open ocean, an immense vertical migration takes place every night. Tiny organisms such as zooplankton, shrimp, and small fish rise from the deep to feed near the surface under cover of darkness. At dawn, they descend again, carrying organic material into deeper waters. This daily movement, known as the Deal vertical migration, is the largest synchronized movement of life on the planet by biomass. It transfers vast quantities of carbon from the surface to the deep ocean, helping regulate the global climate. The migration is guided by changes in light intensity and the need to avoid predators. Some creatures travel hundreds of meters up and down every day, expending enormous energy to stay safe while feeding. Despite being largely invisible to human eyes, this rhythmic motion links surface ecosystems to the deepest layers of the sea in one continuous flow of life. Mountain ranges sculpt weather patterns across entire continents. When moist air encounters a mountain range, it is forced upward, where it cools and condenses into clouds. This process produces rain or snow on the windward side, while leaving the opposite slope dry, creating rain shadows. As a result, mountains define regional climates, giving rise to deserts, forests, and grasslands. They also influence wind circulation and even ocean currents by altering global heat distribution. Melting snow from mountain peaks feeds rivers that sustain billions of people and countless ecosystems downstream. Over geological timescales, mountains act as stabilizing features for the planet's atmosphere by storing carbon in weathered rock and regulating the flow of nutrients to the sea. Their sheer presence shapes both landscapes and the invisible patterns of air and water that determine the conditions for life across the world. Trees can change the shape of clouds forming above them. The water vapor released by leaves interacts with aerosols and organic compounds in the air. These microscopic particles serve as nuclei around which cloud droplets form. In heavily forested areas, the chemical composition of the air differs markedly from that over open fields, leading to distinct cloud structures and rainfall patterns. Satellites have shown that large forests create more frequent and more reflective clouds, which can cool the surface below by increasing sunlight reflection. This feedback loop links vegetation health directly to regional temperature and humidity. When trees are removed, local cloud formation decreases and the atmosphere warms. Every forest acts as both a biological and atmospheric system, altering light, heat, and moisture in measurable ways. The shape of the sky itself is, in part, a product of living things breathing below it. Lightning turns atmospheric nitrogen into natural fertilizer. The atmosphere contains enormous amounts of nitrogen, but most of it exists in a form that plants cannot use. During a lightning strike, the heat is so intense that nitrogen molecules are split and recombine with oxygen to form nitrates. These compounds dissolve in rainwater and fall to the ground, entering soils where they become available to plants. Each storm delivers a small but globally significant supply of natural fertilizer, contributing to the productivity of ecosystems everywhere. Without this process, many landscapes would struggle to sustain growth over long timescales. Lightning's role in the nitrogen cycle demonstrates how even destructive forces contribute to balance in nature. Energy from the sky becomes food for the soil, linking storms and sunlight in a continuous circuit that renews the foundations of life. Beneath polar ice, microscopic algae fuel vast marine food webs. Even in freezing darkness, life persists beneath the sea ice of the Arctic and Antarctic. Microscopic algae cling to the underside of the ice, forming thin green layers that bloom when light filters through in spring. These algae provide essential nutrition for zooplankton, which in turn feed fish, birds, and mammals, such as seals and whales. The entire polar ecosystem depends on this fragile layer of photosynthetic life. As climate change reduces sea ice cover, the balance of light and nutrients shifts, altering when and where blooms occur. These changes ripple through the entire food chain, affecting migration patterns and population sizes. Beneath the frozen surface lies an intricate and productive ecosystem that quietly powers some of the most dramatic wildlife spectacles on the planet. Rivers move not only water but also dissolved life and memory. Flowing water carries far more than sediment. It transports nutrients, organic matter, and genetic material from every ecosystem it touches. Rivers connect mountains, forests, wetlands, and oceans, creating a continuous exchange of chemistry and life. DNA fragments from plants, animals, and microbes drift downstream, providing scientists with a way to monitor biodiversity without direct observation. These environmental DNA samples reveal hidden species and track migrations. Nutrients from decaying leaves feed aquatic organisms, while minerals from rock weathering nourish distant seas. When a river floods, it spreads fertility across floodplains, replenishing soil for future growth. Every current is a link in the planet's biological circulation system. The water that passes a root or stone today may one day sustain coral far away, proving that the story of every ecosystem flows onward through water. The Great Plains once pulsed with herds so large they reshaped the land itself. Before modern settlement, North America's Great Plains were home to millions of bison, elk, and pronghorn. Their constant grazing and movement-shaped plant communities maintained grassland diversity and influenced fire patterns. The impact of these herds extended deep into the soil, where their hooves aerated the ground and their waste added nutrients that supported new growth. Seasonal migrations distributed fertility over vast areas, turning the plains into one of the world's most productive ecosystems. When bison numbers collapsed in the 19th century, grasslands began to change, becoming denser and less resilient. Restoration projects that reintroduce large grazers have shown that their presence helps grasslands recover and adapt to changing climates. The rhythm of their movement once synchronized with the pulse of the land, illustrating how animal behavior can define the structure and stability of entire regions. Fire acts as a regenerative force in many forest ecosystems. In fire-adapted landscapes, periodic burning clears underbrush, recycles nutrients, and triggers the germination of certain seeds. Heat and smoke break down seed coatings that would otherwise remain dormant. After a blaze, the ash enriches the soil, allowing new growth to emerge quickly. Species such as lodgepole pine and eucalyptus depend on this cycle for renewal. Controlled burns, guided by ecological knowledge, help prevent destructive wildfires while maintaining habitat diversity. Without fire, some forests accumulate excess fuel and lose biodiversity as shade-tolerant plants outcompete others. Fire, when balanced and natural, is not an enemy, but a process of renewal that has shaped ecosystems for millions of years. The recovery that follows a burn is often rapid and vibrant, showing that destruction and creation in nature are often two sides of the same essential pattern. Some seeds only awaken after feeling the heat of flames. Many plants have evolved to take advantage of fire rather than avoid it. Their seeds remain sealed by a protective coating that only opens when exposed to intense heat or specific smoke chemicals. This adaptation ensures that seedlings emerge in nutrient-rich soil, cleared of competition. In ecosystems such as Australian bushlands and North American pine forests, post-fire germination leads to explosive regrowth. The plants that rise from the ashes stabilize the ground, prevent erosion, and begin rebuilding food webs. Fire also releases minerals locked in vegetation, feeding the next generation. These evolutionary strategies highlight how life adapts not only to survive disturbance, but to depend on it. For some species, the spark that ends one generation is the same one that begins the next. Coral larvae navigate by the underwater sounds of healthy reefs. When coral larvae drift through the ocean, they rely on more than currents to find a home. Researchers discovered that the tiny creatures can detect the soundscape of vibrant reefs, the crackling of shrimp, the grunts of fish, and the subtle background hum of life. These sounds guide them towards suitable settlement sites where they can attach and grow. In degraded or silent areas, larvae are less likely to settle, which slows reef recovery. Protecting marine soundscapes has become a new frontier in conservation, with experiments showing that playing recordings of healthy reefs can attract larvae and jumpstart restoration. The ability of these microscopic animals to respond to sound reveals an unexpected sensory world beneath the waves, where even the faintest vibrations help rebuild ecosystems that thrive on harmony. Elephants dig wells that sustain dozens of other species. During dry seasons, elephants use their tusks and trunks to dig into riverbeds and sandy soils until they reach groundwater. These wells provide essential drinking sources for antelope, birds, and predators that follow the herds. By breaking branches and felling trees, elephants also open clearings that allow sunlight to reach smaller plants, promoting biodiversity. Their dung disperses seeds across vast distances, planting new vegetation wherever they roam. Ecologists describe elephants as keystone species because their actions shape entire ecosystems. When populations decline, landscapes can quickly change, losing water availability and plant diversity. In regions where elephants have been reintroduced, vegetation patterns, water balance, and species richness have all improved. Their engineering behavior demonstrates how one species can maintain life for many others simply by following its own needs. Reintroducing wolves can transform entire river systems. The return of wolves to Yellowstone National Park in the 1990 triggered profound ecological changes. By hunting deer and elk, wolves reduced overgrazing near rivers and valleys. Vegetation recovered, stabilizing riverbanks and improving habitat for birds, fish, and beavers. This cascade of interactions, known as a trophic cascade, illustrates how predators influence landscapes beyond direct hunting. The presence of wolves even altered prey behavior. Herds began avoiding open valleys, giving young trees time to mature. Over 2 decades, streams narrowed, erosion slowed, and biodiversity increased. The Yellowstone example shows that restoring a single species can reawaken entire ecological networks. The relationships between predators, prey, and vegetation are deeply interwoven, forming the foundation for stable ecosystems. Wolves, once viewed only as hunters, became symbols of how balance returns when every role in nature is allowed to function. Kelp forests can grow half a meter in a single day. Kelp, a large brown seaweed, forms dense underwater forests along cold, nutrient-rich coastlines. Under ideal conditions, it can grow up to 50 centimeters every 24 hours, making it one of the fastest-growing organisms on Earth. These towering fronds create habitats for fish, sea otters, and invertebrates, while absorbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. Kelp forests also buffer coastlines by reducing wave energy and capturing sediment. Their productivity rivals that of tropical rainforests. When sea urchins overgraze or water temperatures rise, kelp forests can collapse, leading to biodiversity loss. Conservation programs that protect sea otters and manage fishing help restore these ecosystems, allowing kelp to regrow and stabilize marine environments. The speed and efficiency of kelp growth make it a vital ally in global carbon cycling and coastal resilience. Desert crusts form living skins of bacteria that prevent erosion. In arid landscapes, the surface of the soil often appears hardened and cracked, but it is alive. Thin crusts composed of cyanobacteria, lichens, and mosses bind soil particles together, reducing erosion by wind and water. These biological soil crusts also fix nitrogen from the atmosphere, enriching nutrient-poor environments. They act as pioneers, stabilizing the land so that other plants can take root. When disturbed by vehicles or footsteps, the crusts can take decades to recover. Their fragile stability underscores the interconnectedness of desert ecosystems, where microscopic life provides the foundation for visible landscapes. By protecting these living surfaces, entire habitats can persist through extreme dryness and heat. A handful of forest soil holds thousands of undiscovered species. Modern genetic studies show that the diversity of life beneath our feet is far greater than previously imagined. Even a small soil sample from a forest can contain DNA from thousands of unknown organisms. Many of these microbes play essential roles in nutrient cycling, decomposition, and plant health. Some produce natural antibiotics or enzymes with potential medical and industrial uses. The majority have never been cultured or named. This hidden biodiversity represents one of the last great frontiers of biological exploration. Each handful of soil holds evolutionary experiments millions of years in the making. As scientists map these communities, they uncover new pathways connecting above-ground ecosystems with the unseen chemical exchanges below. The soil beneath a forest is not just dirt. It is a vast genetic library, still mostly unread. Underground fungi connect trees into communication webs larger than cities. Beneath the surface of forests, vast fungal networks weave through soil, linking the roots of countless trees together. These mycorrhizal networks stretch for kilometers, carrying nutrients, water, and chemical messages between plants. A single teaspoon of soil can contain many meters of fungal filaments, each acting like a conduit for exchange. Through these pathways, older trees supply carbon to seedlings, while distressed trees signal chemical warnings to their neighbors. The scale of these underground systems rivals the complexity of urban infrastructure, but their communication happens silently, molecule by molecule. Research shows that the networks help forests adapt to changing conditions, distribute resources more efficiently, and recover faster from stress. This hidden system turns the soil into an intelligent interface connecting the life above. Every root, leaf, and branch participates in a larger conversation occurring just beneath our feet, invisible yet essential to the health of the world's forests. Microscopic phytoplankton generate most of the oxygen humans breathe. Floating near the surface of oceans, lakes, and rivers are billions of single-celled algae known as phytoplankton. These tiny organisms photosynthesize just like plants on land, using sunlight, carbon dioxide, and nutrients to produce oxygen. Despite their small size, their sheer abundance means they generate more than half of the world's oxygen supply. The oxygen they release dissolves into seawater and diffuses into the atmosphere, sustaining animals on land and in the sea alike. When phytoplankton die, some sink, carrying captured carbon to the ocean floor and storing it for centuries. Their productivity depends on temperature, sunlight, and nutrient availability, making them sensitive indicators of climate change. Satellite imaging shows how their blooms move across entire oceans, painting the surface with shifting greens and blues. Every breath we take carries the signature of these microscopic life forms that quietly regulate the chemistry of the air we depend on. Coastal wetlands capture carbon faster than tropical rainforests. Salt marshes, mangroves, and tidal flats trap carbon in their dense vegetation and waterlogged soils. Because decomposition is slower in these oxygen-poor environments, organic matter accumulates rapidly, forming layers of sediment that store carbon for millennia. These wetlands can absorb and retain carbon up to 50 times more efficiently than tropical rainforests on a per area basis. They also act as natural buffers against storms, reducing flooding and erosion. However, draining or disturbing wetlands releases massive amounts of stored carbon, turning them from sinks into sources. Restoration projects that reconnect wetlands to tidal flows have been shown to revive their carbon storage potential within years. The deep, dark mud beneath their surface holds one of the planet's most effective and least appreciated defenses against climate change, quietly capturing carbon even as tides rise and fall above them. Bat colonies save farmers billions through natural pest control. Each night, insect-eating bats emerge to feed on moths, beetles, and other crop pests. A single bat can consume thousands of insects in just a few hours. Across agricultural regions, these colonies provide an ecological service estimated to be worth billions of dollars annually. By reducing pest populations, bats lower the need for chemical pesticides, improving crop yields while protecting water and soil from contamination. Their guano also serves as a potent natural fertilizer, adding valuable nutrients to the ground. Many bat species migrate seasonally, following insect swarms across continents, creating invisible networks of pest regulation that stretch around the world. When bat populations decline due to habitat loss or disease, farmers often notice increased crop damage and higher costs. These nocturnal hunters are not only keystone species for ecosystems, but also crucial allies in global food security. Antarctic ecosystems depend on a thin layer of sea ice algae. In the frigid waters of the Southern Ocean, microscopic algae cling to the underside of sea ice. This thin, green film forms the foundation of the Antarctic food web. As light filters through the ice in spring, the algae bloom, feeding zooplankton such as krill. These in turn sustain fish, penguins, seals, and whales. The timing and extent of the algae growth determine how much life the region can support each year. When sea ice melts too early or forms too late, the entire food chain suffers. Scientists have observed declines in krill populations where sea ice cover is shrinking, rippling through every level of the ecosystem. The algae's productivity transforms frozen seas into living habitats, proving that even in the most extreme environments, microscopic life drives the balance of the largest creatures on Earth. Fallen leaves act as chemical factories, recycling nutrients into new life. When leaves fall to the ground, they begin to decompose through the combined action of fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates. This decay process releases nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients back into the soil. These elements are absorbed by new roots, fueling the next generation of growth. The leaf litter layer also insulates the ground, conserving moisture and providing shelter for insects and microorganisms. As decomposition progresses, complex molecules like lignin and cellulose are broken down into simpler forms that re-enter the biological cycle. In forests, this recycling process can return nearly all nutrients within a few years. The continuous breakdown and renewal of organic matter sustain entire ecosystems, ensuring that nothing in nature truly goes to waste. Beneath every tree, an invisible assembly line turns decay into fertility, maintaining the quiet loop of life that keeps forests thriving. Some coral reefs are older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Coral reefs grow slowly, adding new layers of calcium carbonate as each generation of coral builds upon the remains of the last. Some modern reefs began forming more than 5,000 years ago, making them older than most human civilizations. Over millennia, they have endured sea level changes, storms, and climatic shifts. The Great Barrier Reef, for example, stretches over 2,000 kilometers and represents a living record of ancient oceans. Each coral skeleton holds information about past temperatures and water chemistry, allowing scientists to reconstruct the environmental history of Earth. These reefs provide habitat for a quarter of all marine species and protect coastlines from erosion. Their age reminds us that stability in nature often emerges from slow, continuous growth. Protecting them today means preserving ecosystems that have witnessed the entire span of recorded human history. Hydrothermal vents recycle elements vital for all living things. At the boundaries of Earth's tectonic plates, seawater seeps into cracks in the ocean floor, where it is heated by magma. When it rises back to the surface, it emerges from hydrothermal vents as mineral-rich plumes, carrying iron, sulfur, and other elements essential for life. These compounds feed specialized bacteria that form the base of unique deep-sea ecosystems. The vents continually replenish nutrients that eventually spread across the ocean, linking the deepest depths with surface productivity. By cycling materials from the planet's crust into biological systems, these vents help maintain chemical balance in the oceans. Some scientists believe that life on Earth may have originated near similar environments billions of years ago. The constant exchange between rock, heat, and water shows how geological and biological processes have always been intertwined. Grasslands help cool the planet by reflecting sunlight back into space. The bright, open surfaces of grasslands reflect more solar radiation than forests, creating a cooling effect on local and global climates. This property, known as albedo, helps regulate temperature by reducing the amount of heat absorbed by the ground. Grasslands also store significant amounts of carbon in their extensive root systems, locking it away for centuries. When converted to farmland or allowed to degrade, this stored carbon escapes, contributing to atmospheric warming. Well-managed prairies and savannas act as natural climate regulators, balancing the energy and carbon cycles of the planet. Their ability to reflect light and stabilize soil makes them one of the most effective ecosystems for maintaining global temperature equilibrium. Protecting and restoring grasslands is therefore as crucial to climate stability as preserving forests or oceans. Tiny plankton pull carbon from the air and lock it deep beneath the sea. Phytoplankton absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, using it to build organic matter. When they die or are eaten, the carbon they contain sinks as part of marine snow, eventually reaching the ocean floor. There it becomes trapped in sediments, removed from the atmosphere for thousands of years. This biological carbon pump is one of the most important mechanisms regulating Earth's climate. Without it, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels would be dramatically higher. Ocean circulation, nutrient availability, and temperature all influence the efficiency of this process. Even small changes can alter how much carbon the ocean can store. By studying plankton populations and their sinking particles, scientists can track the planet's long-term carbon balance. These microscopic drifters quietly manage one of the most powerful climate systems on Earth, drawing carbon down grain by grain into the deep. Earthworms transform barren soil into fertile ground, layer by layer. As earthworms tunnel through soil, they consume organic matter and excrete nutrient-rich castings. Their movement aerates the ground, allowing oxygen and water to penetrate more easily. Over time, their activity improves soil structure, enhances fertility, and increases plant growth. In ecosystems recovering from disturbance, earthworms act as pioneer species, rebuilding productivity from the ground up. Their digestive process breaks down complex compounds into forms that plants can readily absorb. Charles Darwin devoted decades to studying their impact, concluding that earthworms play a greater role in shaping the landscape than most people realize. A healthy population of earthworms signals a thriving ecosystem. Each one contributes to the slow, patient engineering of the planet's surface, turning decay into life and keeping the soil alive from within. Tropical forests generate their own cloud through endless transpiration. In the world's rainforests, water vapor rises continuously from leaves, branches, and soils. This vapor cools as it ascends, condensing into clouds that later release rain over the same forest. The cycle repeats daily, maintaining constant humidity and temperature. The process also redistributes heat energy throughout the atmosphere, influencing weather far beyond the tropics. In regions like the Amazon and Congo basin, as much as half of the rainfall originates from this internal recycling. Deforestation breaks the cycle, leading to drier conditions and increasing the risk of drought. These self-sustaining water systems illustrate how vegetation and climate are inseparable. The forest breathes moisture into the sky, and receives it back again, keeping its own ecosystem alive through perfect atmospheric balance. Some rainforests never dry because the plants keep the air humid. In certain tropical regions, the air is so saturated with moisture that the forest generates mist even without rain. Plants release vapor through transpiration at such a high rate that humidity remains nearly constant. This thick, moist air reduces evaporation from leaves, helping plants conserve water while cooling the environment. The cycle of vapor and condensation maintains stable microclimates within the forest. Even during dry seasons, dew and fog keep vegetation hydrated. The consistent humidity also supports delicate organisms such as orchids, mosses, and amphibians that rely on moisture to survive. These ever-wet forests demonstrate how tightly biological and atmospheric systems are intertwined. Their ability to sustain their own climate makes them some of the most resilient and life-rich habitats on the planet. Decomposers return nearly every atom of the dead back to the living. When organisms die, decomposers such as fungi, bacteria, and insects begin breaking them down. Through enzymatic reactions, they convert complex organic matter into simpler molecules like carbon dioxide, water, and minerals. These products re-enter the soil and air, becoming available for plants and microbes to reuse. This recycling ensures that essential elements continuously circulate through ecosystems. Without decomposers, nutrients would accumulate in dead material, halting the cycle of growth. Their work also supports soil structure and fertility by creating humus, a stable organic compound that retains water and nutrients. The decomposition process links death and life in a seamless continuum, maintaining the balance of matter and energy across the planet. Every living thing owes its existence to the invisible labor of decomposers renewing the foundations of life. Frozen peatlands hold more carbon than all the world's forests combined. Peatlands are wetlands where waterlogging slows decay, allowing layers of partially decomposed plants to accumulate over thousands of years. In cold regions, these deposits can reach depths of several meters, storing immense amounts of carbon. When peatlands remain frozen, the carbon stays locked away, but thawing or drainage releases it rapidly into the atmosphere. Global estimates suggest that peatlands hold twice as much carbon as all living vegetation combined. Their preservation is therefore critical to slowing climate change. Restoration efforts focus on rewetting drained peatlands to halt oxidation and encourage new plant growth. These quiet, moss-covered landscapes act as both archives of ecological history and vital regulators of the Earth's climate, holding the breath of ages beneath their surface. Bees reshape the evolution of flowers through selective pollination. As bees move from flower to flower, collecting nectar and pollen, they influence which plants reproduce successfully. Over generations, this selective process shapes the color, shape, and timing of blooms. Flowers adapted to bee pollination often develop ultraviolet patterns visible only to insects, guiding them toward nectar. The mutual dependence between bees and flowering plants represents one of the most intricate partnerships in nature. When bee populations decline, entire ecosystems can shift as pollination networks collapse. Human agriculture depends heavily on this relationship, with many crops relying on bees for fruit and seed production. Their choices have steered plant evolution for millions of years, ensuring that the landscape itself reflects the preferences of these tiny, tireless pollinators. Forest canopies host species that never touch the ground. High above the forest floor, the canopy forms a layered world of branches, leaves, and sunlight. This elevated habitat supports birds, insects, frogs, orchids, and even small mammals that spend their entire lives in the treetops. The canopy's structure varies by height and density, creating niches similar to those found across entire ecosystems. Many species here remain undiscovered because of the difficulty of exploration. Researchers who climb into the canopy or use aerial platforms often find unique forms of life adapted to the abundance of light and the scarcity of water. The canopy also regulates the forest's climate by absorbing sunlight and moderating temperature. It is both roof and engine, turning light into energy and sheltering the immense web of life below. Every coral species builds a distinct architectural blueprint. No two coral species construct their skeletons in exactly the same way. Some form delicate branching patterns that create open, airy structures. Others build massive domes or flat tables that shelter schools of fish. The shapes of these coral colonies determine how water flows through the reef and how other organisms interact with it. Their growth patterns are influenced by light, current, and wave strength, making each reef a reflection of its environment. As corals expand, they create three-dimensional cities that provide food, protection, and breeding grounds for countless marine species. The diversity of coral architecture supports biodiversity at every level, from microscopic algae to large predators. Preserving this architectural variety is essential for the stability of ocean ecosystems worldwide. Birds carry seeds farther than any current of wind could reach. Birds play a major role in dispersing plants across continents and islands. Seeds eaten with fruit pass through their digestive systems unharmed, often emerging hundreds of kilometers away. This method of transport allows plants to colonize new habitats and maintain genetic diversity. Some seeds even depend entirely on birds to complete their life cycles. Migratory species carry plant genes across oceans, shaping ecosystems over millennia. Bird droppings deposit seeds with natural fertilizer, increasing their chances of survival. Forest regeneration often begins along the paths of bird flight, demonstrating that winged travelers are architects of future landscapes. The flight of a single bird may quietly decide the fate of entire forests yet to grow. Migrating fish deliver nutrients from the sea to mountain forests. When fish, such as salmon, travel upstream to spawn, they carry nutrients accumulated in the ocean into freshwater ecosystems. After spawning, their bodies decay, releasing nitrogen and phosphorus that enrich rivers and surrounding soils. Bears, eagles, and other predators drag carcasses into the forest, spreading these marine nutrients even farther inland. Trees growing near rivers show measurable chemical signatures from ocean sources, proving how tightly connected marine and terrestrial ecosystems are. This exchange sustains productivity across entire regions, linking mountain and sea in one continuous nutrient cycle. The migration of fish is not just a journey for survival, but a biological process that redistributes the wealth of the ocean across the living world. The partnership between algae and fungi and lichens pioneered life on land. Lichens are among the earliest known collaborations between organisms, a partnership so successful that it transformed the planet. They consist of a fungus that provides structure and protection, and an alga or cyanobacterium that captures sunlight to produce food. This alliance allows lichens to survive on bare rock, in deserts, on tree bark, and even in the thin air of mountaintops. By slowly secreting acids, lichens break down rock into mineral fragments, forming the first thin soils capable of supporting plants. Over millions of years, they helped prepare the land for complex life. Their tough outer layers withstand freezing, heat, and radiation, enabling them to colonize some of Earth's harshest places. Scientists have even revived lichens after exposure to outer space. In their quiet persistence, lichens remind us that cooperation, not competition, was the key that unlocked the continents for life. Desert plants harvest water directly from morning fog. In the driest deserts, where rain may not fall for years, certain plants have evolved astonishing ways to gather moisture. Many possess leaves or spines coated in microscopic hairs that capture water droplets from fog or dew. These droplets merge, roll downward, and collect at the base of the plant, where roots absorb them before the sun rises high enough to evaporate them. Some species, like the Namib desert beetle and nearby desert shrubs, use similar physics to channel moisture from air into survival. The efficiency of these adaptations has inspired biomimetic designs in human technology, from self-watering greenhouses to fog nets that supply drinking water in arid regions. Even in the absence of rainfall, these plants thrive by reading the rhythms of condensation and air. Each dawn brings a brief, miraculous drink from the breath of the desert itself. Savanna fires maintain balance by preventing forest takeover. Periodic fires sweep through savannas and grasslands, consuming dried grasses and underbrush. Although they appear destructive, these fires are vital to the ecosystem's stability. The heat releases nutrients locked in dead vegetation, fertilizing the soil for new growth. Many grasses have deep protected roots that sprout again within days, while the flames keep tree seedlings from overrunning open plains. Without these natural burns, forests would encroach, and the balance between trees and grasses would collapse. Fire also shapes animal populations by clearing paths for grazers and stimulating the fresh green shoots that attract them. Lightning is often the natural spark, but traditional cultures have long practiced controlled burning to maintain this equilibrium. Each fire is both ending and renewal, a cleansing pulse through which savannas remain resilient and alive, echoing cycles that have persisted for millions of years. Penguin colonies enrich Antarctic soil with nitrogen from the sea. Penguins may seem far removed from global ecology, yet their colonies are engines of nutrient recycling. Feeding on krill and fish, they accumulate marine nitrogen and phosphorus in their bodies, then deposit these nutrients on land through guano. The concentrated droppings fertilize mosses, lichens, and microbial mats, allowing terrestrial ecosystems to flourish even in extreme cold. Researchers have found that soil near large penguin colonies can be 10 times richer in nutrients than the surrounding tundra. The scent of guano even acts as a signal to other species, going scavenging insects and enriching the food web. When sea ice conditions change, penguin migration patterns shift, redistributing this nutrient supply across Antarctica. Their behavior effectively connects ocean and land in a continuous ecological loop. From fish in the depths to moss on the rocks, penguins help sustain the fragile productivity of the frozen continent. The soundscape of a healthy rainforest reveals its ecological balance. Every rainforest has a distinct acoustic fingerprint, a layered symphony of insects, birds, frogs, and mammals. Scientists now use sound recorders to measure biodiversity by analyzing these natural choruses. A vibrant, healthy forest produces continuous sound across many frequencies, while a degraded or fragmented one often has gaps of silence where species have vanished. Soundscapes also reveal behavioral patterns. Dawn choruses signal bird territory, while night calls track amphibian populations. Even rain and wind leave sonic signatures that shape how animals communicate. Acoustic monitoring provides a non-invasive way to understand entire ecosystems without disturbing them. In many areas, this technology has uncovered declines in species long before they were visible. To listen to a rainforest is to hear its heartbeat, a living rhythm where every call, buzz, and echo contribute to the balance of the wild. Some plants release distress chemicals that summon helpful insects. When a caterpillar or beetle chews through a leaf, the plant does not remain passive. It releases airborne chemical signals that travel through the air, attracting predatory insects such as wasps that attack the herbivore. These distress compounds can also alert nearby plants, triggering them to produce defensive chemicals before they are damaged. Some crops have been bred to enhance this ability, reducing the need for pesticides. The complexity of these chemical conversations rivals any animal communication system. Each volatile compound carries specific information about the attacker and the plant's state. Scientists are only beginning to decode this language of sense that orchestrates invisible alliances across entire fields and forests. What appears to be a silent struggle between leaf and insect is, in truth, a broadcast for allies in the ongoing negotiation between life and survival. Soil microbes form the ancient ancestors of gut bacteria in animals. The microbial world beneath our feet mirrors the one within us. Long before animals evolved, soil bacteria developed the ability to digest complex organic molecules, recycle nutrients, and communicate through chemical signals. When early creatures began feeding on decaying matter, they absorbed these microbes into their bodies. Over time, the partnership deepened until many of these microorganisms became permanent residents inside animal digestive systems. Modern studies show that certain lineages of gut bacteria still share genetic traits with their soil-dwelling relatives. This ancient link explains why exposure to healthy soil can influence immune systems and digestion even today. Each handful of earth holds echoes of the symbiotic history that shaped every living creature. In caring for the soil, we preserve the very microbial heritage that sustains us from within. The changing color of the ocean reflects its biological health. From satellites orbiting far above, scientists can read the life of the sea through color. Phytoplankton blooms tint the water green, while nutrient-poor regions appear deep blue. Shifts in these hues reveal fluctuations in productivity, temperature, and even pollution. Over recent decades, subtle color changes have signaled transformations in ocean ecosystems caused by warming and acidification. As plankton communities shift, so do the creatures that depend on them, from tiny crustaceans to great whales. The ocean's palette becomes a living map of chemistry and biology intertwined. Just as tree rings preserve a record of climate on land, the sea's color tells the ongoing story of change. To look upon its surface is to witness the planet thinking aloud, a visual language of pigments and light that encodes the state of life itself. Volcanic ash delivers trace minerals that jumpstart ecosystems. When volcanoes erupt, they release clouds of ash and dust rich in iron, magnesium, and phosphorus. These minerals settle across land and sea, acting as fertilizer for plants and phytoplankton. In ocean regions where iron is scarce, volcanic fallout can trigger vast blooms of microscopic life that absorb carbon dioxide and feed marine food webs. On land, ash restores nutrient-poor soils and accelerates the recovery of forests after eruptions. Though initially destructive, volcanic activity often rejuvenates ecosystems over decades, demonstrating nature's ability to rebuild from its own upheavals. Scientists studying past eruptions have traced surges in biological productivity following even distant volcanic events. In this way, Earth's geological and biological cycles remain inseparable. From fire comes fertility, as the ashes of destruction scatter the raw materials for renewal. Wetlands filter and purify the planet's freshwater systems. Wetlands act as Earth's kidneys, cleansing water as it flows through reeds, soil, and sediment. As water moves slowly through these landscapes, suspended particles settle, and plants absorb excess nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus. Microbes in the saturated soil break down organic pollutants and trap heavy metals, leaving cleaner water to continue downstream. This natural filtration system supports drinking supplies, fisheries, and biodiversity across continents. Wetlands also act as sponges, absorbing floodwaters and releasing them gradually, reducing the severity of storms and droughts. Their loss has led to increased water pollution and habitat decline worldwide. Restoring even small areas can revive their ability to filter and balance entire watersheds. Every reed, root, and ripple in a wetland participates in a delicate process of purification, renewing one of the planet's most vital and threatened resources. Stressed coral glows with bioluminescent light to protect its algae. When exposed to sudden heat or intense sunlight, some coral species emit brilliant fluorescent pigments. This glow acts as a sunscreen, shielding the coral's symbiotic algae from excess radiation. The colors, ranging from neon green to vivid orange, appear just before bleaching occurs, suggesting that the coral is fighting to survive. These pigments may also help attract beneficial microbes that assist recovery. Researchers study this natural fluorescence as an early warning system for reef stress. The glowing response is a final act of resilience, revealing the coral's effort to maintain its partnership with the algae that feed it. Even under threat, the reef shines with defiance, a brief and beautiful signal of life's determination to endure before the light fades to white. The scent of rain partly comes from soil bacteria released into the air. That familiar earthy fragrance after rainfall has a scientific name, petrichor. It arises when water droplets strike dry soil, releasing tiny aerosols containing compounds produced by bacteria and plants. One of the most distinctive of these is geosmin, created by actinobacteria that live in soil and decaying vegetation. Humans are extraordinarily sensitive to geosmin. We can detect it in concentrations as low as a few parts per trillion. The scent likely evolved as a cue for animals to locate water or moist environments. In essence, rain carries the smell of microbial life awakening. Each storm stirs the soil into a brief celebration of chemistry, sending messages skyward that life below is thriving. The aroma of petrichor connects us to the microbial pulse that renews the planet with every shower. Ocean tides pump nutrients through coastal ecosystems like a heartbeat. Twice each day, the movement of tides pushes seawater in and out of estuaries, salt marshes, and mangrove forests. This motion transports oxygen, minerals, and organic matter through sediments where countless small organisms live. The constant exchange keeps these ecosystems productive, feeding shellfish, crustaceans, and fish that depend on tidal flows. When tides recede, they expose mudflats that become feeding grounds for birds, then cover them again with nutrient-rich water. The rhythm of the tides regulates temperature and salinity, preventing stagnation. Scientists describe this pulsing motion as the coastal ocean's heartbeat, a continuous cycle that sustains life and shapes shorelines. Without the push and pull of the moon's gravity, many coastal environments would collapse, deprived of the vital flow that links sea and land. Open gaps in forests trigger bursts of new biodiversity. When a large tree falls, it opens a patch of light in the forest canopy. Sunlight floods the ground, awakening dormant seeds and encouraging fast-growing plants to sprout. Insects, birds, and small mammals quickly move in, taking advantage of the new resources. Over time, the gap fills with a mosaic of species competing for space and light. Ecologists call this process succession, a cycle of disturbance and renewal that keeps forests dynamic. Each fallen tree resets a tiny piece of the ecosystem, preventing any single species from dominating. The result is a richer, more resilient community. Forest gaps demonstrate how even loss can become opportunity, as light and life reorganize themselves into fresh forms of balance. Some ecosystems retain a memory of past disturbances. After fires, floods, or storms, certain ecosystems carry subtle imprints of the event for decades or even centuries. This ecological memory persists through soil composition, genetic adaptations, or the continued presence of species shaped by the disturbance. Forests that experience frequent fires, for instance, develop thicker bark and seeds that germinate only after exposure to heat. Grasslands store traces of old droughts in root depth and microbial communities. These inherited traits prepare ecosystems for future challenges, improving their resilience. Ecological memory functions like a natural form of wisdom, recorded not in words, but in structure and behavior. The landscape itself remembers, shaping how life responds to the next great change. Certain birds weave living branches into growing nests. Some species, such as weaver birds and certain tropical finches, construct nests by intricately braiding flexible twigs and leaves into structures that expand as the branches grow. Over time, these nests become living shelters, anchored directly to the trees that support them. The birds select materials that continue to grow after being woven, allowing the nest to strengthen naturally. Such craftsmanship reflects both instinct and environmental adaptation, ensuring stability in high winds or heavy rains. These nests also create miniature ecosystems, harboring insects and small plants that colonize their walls. In blending architecture with biology, these birds demonstrate a level of ecological integration unmatched in the animal kingdom, turning their homes into living extensions of the forest itself. Sand dunes hide microbial mats that stabilize entire deserts. Beneath the surface of shifting dunes, communities of cyanobacteria, fungi, and algae form thin layers that bind sand grains together. These microbial mats prevent erosion and help trap moisture, enabling seeds to germinate in an otherwise unstable environment. They also fix nitrogen, enriching the soil for other organisms. When disturbed by vehicles or overgrazing, the mats take years to reform, leaving dunes vulnerable to collapse and spreading desertification. Satellite imagery has shown that regions with intact microbial crusts resist wind erosion far better than barren sands. These hidden biological engineers quietly hold the desert in place, anchoring an ecosystem built on the finest threads of life. Juvenile fish depend on mangrove roots as nurseries. The tangled roots of mangrove trees create sheltered lagoons where young fish find protection from predators. The roots slow water currents, allowing organic matter to settle and form rich feeding grounds. As the juveniles grow, they venture farther into open waters, carrying the nutrients and energy of the mangroves into coral reefs and the wider ocean. This transition links coastal forests and marine ecosystems into one interconnected life cycle. When mangroves are cleared for development, fisheries often collapse, revealing how deeply the ocean depends on these shoreline forests. Each submerged root becomes a cradle for the sea's next generation, a place where survival begins in the shadowed calm of interlaced wood and tide. Trees struck by lightning often become miniature habitats for animals. When lightning hits a tree, it can hollow the trunk or split branches, creating cavities that later shelter birds, bats, insects, and small mammals. The damaged wood collects rainwater, forming microhabitats for amphibians and invertebrates. Fungi colonize the wounds, breaking down the interior and attracting more life. Over time, the scarred tree becomes a vertical ecosystem, supporting species that rely on such shelters for breeding or safety. Even after the tree dies, the hollow remains serve as nesting sites or nutrient reservoirs. In this way, what begins as a single flash of destruction evolves into years of regeneration. A tree once struck by lightning becomes proof that disturbance and creation are two sides of the same natural story. Polar bears trace their entire food web back to sea ice algae. The Arctic's top predator depends on an invisible foundation. Tiny algae growing on the underside of sea ice bloom each spring, feeding plankton and small crustaceans that, in turn, nourish fish and seals. When sea ice melts earlier each year, the timing of these blooms shifts, disrupting the entire chain. Polar bears rely on seal populations that depend on this microscopic base. Scientists studying isotopes in bear tissue have traced their nutrients directly to these ice-bound algae, proving that the fate of the largest Arctic mammals begins with the smallest organisms. As the ice retreats, the entire web weakens. The survival of polar bears, seals, and seabirds ultimately rests upon a fragile green film that clings to the frozen undersides of the world. The ocean's twilight zone may hold most of Earth's animal life. Far below the sunlit surface, between 200 and 1,000 meters deep, lies the ocean's twilight zone. Here, faint blue light fades into darkness, and temperatures plunge while pressure soars. Yet this shadowed region teems with life. Tiny crustaceans, jellyfish, squid, and bioluminescent fish form dense layers that migrate up and down every day, following the sun's cycle. Scientists estimate that the biomass of this zone could exceed that of all surface fish combined. The creatures here play a vital role in the planet's carbon cycle by feeding near the surface at night and descending by day, transporting carbon to deeper waters. Many species remain undiscovered, their lights flickering like stars in a submerged sky. The twilight zone is a hidden engine of planetary balance, a vast moving mass of life that connects the glowing shallows to the black abyss below. Microbes drift across the planet on global air currents. Invisible travelers move constantly through the sky. Bacteria, fungal spores, and microscopic algae hitch rides on dust, sea spray, and vapor, crossing continents and oceans in a matter of days. These airborne microbes influence weather by helping water vapor condense into clouds and rain. Some even survive the journey intact, colonizing new environments when they return to Earth. Researchers have detected them in the stratosphere, kilometers above ground, proving that the biosphere extends far higher than once believed. Each gust of wind carries fragments of distant ecosystems, desert dust laced with soil microbes, ocean mist filled with plankton, or pollen from forests thousands of kilometers away. This microbial migration weaves the planet's atmosphere into a living thread that connects every habitat. The air we breathe is not empty. It is alive with the smallest, most ancient travelers on Earth. Amphibians act as early warning systems for environmental collapse. Frogs, salamanders, and newts are among the most sensitive creatures on the planet. Their permeable skin absorbs water, oxygen, and pollutants directly from their surroundings, making them early indicators of environmental stress. Declines in amphibian populations often precede broader ecosystem disruptions caused by pollution, climate change, or disease. Scientists have identified a fungal pathogen, chytrid fungus, that has devastated amphibian species worldwide, signaling shifts in temperature and humidity linked to global change. Monitoring these animals provides vital clues about the health of wetlands, rivers, and forests. When amphibians vanish, it is rarely an isolated event. It often heralds cascading effects throughout the food web. Their voices at night mark not just the rhythm of seasonal life, but the stability of the environments they inhabit. To listen to frogs calling is to hear the pulse of an ecosystem still holding its balance. Grazing parrotfish keep coral reefs alive by eating the algae that smother them. Among the coral's many protectors, the parrotfish plays one of the most crucial roles. With beak-like teeth, it grazes constantly on algae that would otherwise overgrow and suffocate coral colonies. As it feeds, it scrapes bits of limestone, which pass through its body and emerge as fine sand, helping build tropical beaches. A single large parrotfish can produce hundreds of kilograms of sand each year. Their grazing keeps reefs clean and allows young coral to establish new growth. When parrotfish populations decline due to overfishing, algae quickly take over, transforming vibrant reefs into barren rock. The bright colors and constant feeding of these fish sustain the balance of entire marine ecosystems. Every grain of white sand under tropical feet may once have passed through a parrotfish's jaws, a quiet testament to their unseen work, maintaining the foundations of paradise. Leafcutter ants cultivate underground fungus farms. Deep beneath the forest floor, leafcutter ants maintain one of the oldest examples of agriculture on Earth. They cut fragments of leaves and carry them back to their colonies, not for direct food, but to feed a specialized fungus that thrives in their chambers. The fungus breaks down the plant material into nutrients the ants can consume. In return, the ants protect it from pests and maintain ideal humidity and temperature conditions. The mutual dependence is so complete that neither species can survive without the other. Leafcutter colonies can include millions of individuals working in precise coordination, guided by chemical trails and division of labor. Their underground gardens enrich soil and influence plant growth above. Long before humans learned to farm, ants had already mastered cultivation, proving that agriculture began not with tools, but with cooperation. Many lakes flip upside down each year as temperatures shift. In temperate regions, lakes experience a remarkable event known as turnover. During summer, warm water stays near the surface while colder, denser water rests below. As autumn cools the surface, temperatures equalize, allowing the layers to mix. Oxygen from the surface moves downward, and nutrients from the depths rise upward, revitalizing the entire lake. A similar process happens in spring when ice melts. These seasonal reversals distribute resources evenly, supporting fish and plankton populations. Without turnover, deep waters would stagnate, and life would struggle to survive. Scientists studying this phenomenon find that climate change is altering its timing, threatening ecosystems dependent on the natural rhythm. When a lake turns over, it breathes again, uniting its layers in a cycle as ancient as the continents themselves. Diverse ecosystems resist collapse better than uniform ones. Biodiversity acts as insurance for the planet. When ecosystems contain many species performing similar roles, they can absorb shocks such as drought, disease, or disturbance without collapsing. If one species declines, others can fill its ecological niche. Monocultures, by contrast, are fragile. A single pest or change can cause total failure. Research shows that areas rich in species recover faster from natural disasters and maintain higher productivity over time. The interdependence of many forms of life creates stability through variation. Forests, reefs, and grasslands all rely on this principle. Diversity is not merely aesthetic, it is the structural backbone of resilience. The more complex the web of life, the stronger its ability to endure change. In diversity lies the quiet strength that keeps the living world from unraveling. Mosses can anchor entire mountainsides against erosion. Although small, mosses perform extraordinary ecological work. Their dense mats trap water, stabilize soil, and slow the flow of rain across slopes. On bare rock, moss acts as a pioneer species, beginning the process of soil formation by capturing dust and organic debris. In high-altitude or wet environments, these green carpets create microhabitats for insects and amphibians, helping retain moisture long after storms pass. Mosses can survive desiccation, reviving with the first hint of humidity, which allows them to persist where few other plants can. When mosses are stripped from landscapes through mining or development, erosion increases and nutrient cycles falter. They are the quiet architects of stability, cushioning the ground beneath our feet and holding the edges of mountains in place through centuries of rain and time. Meltwater from glaciers nourishes rivers long after the ice recedes. Even as glaciers retreat, The water they release continues to feed rivers, wetlands, and groundwater systems for years or decades. This steady melt provides drinking water for millions of people and sustained ecosystems across mountain ranges and plains. The mineral-rich meltwater carries nutrients that fertilize valleys, supporting forests and agriculture far downstream. When glaciers vanish entirely, rivers often shrink or dry, destabilizing regions that depend on their flow. Scientists call this phenomenon the glacial pulse, a delayed echo of Ice Age abundance. Every drop of meltwater carries the memory of frozen centuries, a record of snowfalls long past. As the climate warms, these ancient stores of water are disappearing, reminding us that the rivers we know today are not eternal, but borrowed from the past. Some rainforests grow atop the fossilized remains of ancient oceans. In parts of South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, layers of limestone beneath rainforests tell a strange story of origin. These rocks formed from marine sediments millions of years ago when the land was still underwater. As tectonic forces lifted the seabed, plants colonized the new terrain, creating jungles above ancient reefs. The calcium-rich bedrock influences the chemistry of rainwater and soil, nurturing unique plant communities adapted to its minerals. In some caves below these forests, fossilized coral and marine shells remain perfectly preserved, silent evidence of the world that came before. Life has grown upon its own ruins, turning ancient seabeds into the greenest landscapes on Earth. Every drop of rain that seeps into these soils carries whispers of the ocean that once covered them. Migrating animals navigate by Earth's magnetic field. Many species, from sea turtles to birds to salmon, can sense the planet's magnetic lines. This internal compass allows them to travel thousands of kilometers with remarkable precision. Experiments show that even newborn animals with no prior experience can orient themselves using magnetism alone. Some possess specialized cells containing tiny crystals of magnetite, while others may detect faint shifts in magnetic fields through their eyes. These abilities link migration patterns to subtle variations in Earth's magnetism, which changes over geological time. The mystery of magnetic navigation remains partly unsolved, but its existence reveals a hidden layer of connection between life and the planet itself. Migration is not random wandering. It is a magnetic dialogue written into the biology of movement and memory. Insects pollinate nearly every flowering plant on the planet. The diversity of flowering plants owes its existence to insects. Bees, butterflies, beetles, flies, and countless others transfer pollen as they feed, ensuring the reproduction of over 80% of all flowering species. Without them, ecosystems would lose much of their food supply and colour. Pollination drives evolution, as plants develop shapes, colours, and scents to attract their specific pollinators. The global economy also depends on this service, with a large share of crops relying on insect pollination. Yet habitat loss and pesticide use are causing pollinator populations to decline at alarming rates. Protecting them safeguards not only agriculture, but the foundation of terrestrial biodiversity. Each delicate landing of an insect on a flower continues a relationship that has shaped the living world for more than 100 million years. The scent of pine forests helps form clouds that cool the air. Pine trees release aromatic compounds known as terpenes, responsible for the sharp, clean scent of forest air. When these gases rise into the atmosphere, they react with sunlight and other particles to form aerosols. These aerosols serve as nuclei around which water droplets condense, forming clouds. The process subtly influences regional climate by reflecting sunlight and promoting rainfall. During heat waves, forests emit more terpenes, creating a self-cooling feedback loop that can moderate extreme temperatures. Scientists studying this chemistry have found that the fragrance of a forest is not just pleasant but functional. participating in atmospheric cycles that sustain life. Each breath of pine-scented air carries molecules that help weave the sky's fabric of clouds and rain. Coral reefs act as natural seawalls, protecting coastlines. The intricate structures of coral reefs absorb up to 97% of incoming wave energy, shielding coastlines from erosion, flooding, and storm surges. Their complex architecture dissipates force long before waves reach shore, protecting both human settlements and coastal ecosystems. In regions where reefs have been damaged, erosion rates and flood impacts rise dramatically. Healthy reefs, by contrast, stabilize sandbanks and maintain beaches. Their protection is a free, natural service worth billions annually in disaster prevention. Restoration projects that plant new coral fragments or encourage regrowth can quickly restore this barrier function. Coral reefs are not only cradles of biodiversity, but also the living armor of the sea, safeguarding the fragile boundary between land and water. Rotting logs nurture the next generation of forest life. When a tree falls, its decomposition begins a new chapter of the forest's life. Fungi, insects, and bacteria break down the wood, releasing nutrients that enrich the surrounding soil. Mosses and seedlings take root in the soft, decaying surface, using the log as a moist, nutrient-rich cradle. In many forests, fallen trees host more biodiversity dead than alive. They retain water, provide shelter, and even regulate humidity for nearby plants. Over decades, they dissolve back into the earth, leaving behind fertile humus. The slow decay of wood is not an ending but a transformation, the forest's way of returning strength to itself through the patient work of time and renewal. Nutrient cycles connect mountain peaks to ocean floors. When rain falls on mountains, it dissolves minerals from rocks and carries them through rivers to the sea. Along the way, nutrients feed forests, wetlands, and plains. Once in the ocean, they support plankton that eventually sink, depositing carbon and minerals onto the seabed. Over millions of years, tectonic forces raise these sediments back into mountains, completing the cycle. This endless exchange binds the highest peaks to the deepest trenches, creating a planetary system of recycling that never stops. The calcium in a seashell may one day become part of a mountain, and the dust from that mountain may nourish a forest or reef. Every grain of soil and every drop of water participates in this slow, majestic circulation linking the Earth's extremes. Whale songs may help regulate the behavior of entire species communities. Whales communicate across vast distances using low-frequency sounds that can travel for hundreds of kilometers. These songs coordinate migration, mating, and feeding behaviors not only among whales, but potentially across entire ecosystems. The vibrations may help synchronize movements of fish schools and influence predator-prey dynamics. Scientists are beginning to understand that ocean soundscapes act as organizing forces, carrying information through water denser than air. Human noise pollution from ships and sonar disrupts these signals, creating confusion and stress among marine life. When the oceans fell silent during global lockdowns, researchers recorded clearer, more complex whale songs, suggesting how much communication had been masked. The voices of whales are more than calls, they are threads of connection holding the structure of oceanic life together. A single drop of seawater can contain thousands of microbial species. Under a microscope, a drop of seawater transforms into an entire universe. Tiny bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and algae drift within it, interacting in endless chemical and biological exchanges. Some create oxygen, others decompose waste or regulate nutrients. Each plays a microscopic role that collectively sustains the ocean's health. Estimates suggest that 1 milliliter of seawater can contain as many as 10 million microorganisms. Together, these invisible communities form the base of marine food webs, and drive global biogeochemical cycles. Scientists studying them have discovered new species with unique genetic abilities, including enzymes that digest plastics and fix nitrogen. The sea's smallest inhabitants hold solutions to some of humanity's greatest challenges, hidden in the space of a single shining drop. Every ecosystem has a measurable rhythm of energy flow. From rainforests to deserts, each ecosystem pulses with a distinct tempo of production and decay. Energy enters through sunlight, passes through plants, herbivores, and predators, and returns through decomposers. This flow follows predictable cycles of time, season, and light. Researchers measure it through carbon exchange, oxygen production, and nutrient turnover, finding that even apparently chaotic environments operate within rhythmic bounds. When these cycles are disrupted, balance falters, leading to collapse. Yet as long as energy continues to move and transform, life adapts and reorganizes. The planet is not static but alive with repeating waves of exchange, a symphony of energy that connects every creature to the same enduring pulse. Certain fungi help trees adapt to rising temperatures. Some fungi form symbiotic relationships with tree roots that increase resilience to heat and drought. These fungi enhance water absorption and alter the chemistry of the soil, allowing trees to survive in conditions that would otherwise be lethal. Recent studies show that forest communities with diverse fungal partners recover more quickly from extreme weather events. As climates shift, fungi may migrate or evolve alongside their host trees, acting as hidden allies in the struggle to endure warming temperatures. Mycorrhizal partnerships represent one of nature's most adaptable strategies, a microscopic collaboration shaping the future of entire forests. Beneath the soil, these ancient alliances continue to redefine what it means for life to evolve together under pressure. Dust from the Sahara fertilizes the Amazon rainforest. Every year, vast clouds of dust rise from the Sahara Desert and cross the Atlantic Ocean, carried by trade winds for thousands of kilometers. This dust contains phosphorus and other minerals derived from ancient lake beds that once covered the desert. When the particles fall over South America, they replenish the nutrient-poor soils of the Amazon rainforest, acting as natural fertilizer. Without this mineral infusion, the rainforest would gradually lose its fertility through constant rainfall and decay. Satellites have traced these plumes, revealing that as much as 27 million tons of Saharan dust reach the Americas each year. The desert, often seen as lifeless, sustains one of the most vibrant ecosystems on Earth through this invisible connection. It is a planetary exchange written in air, the dry heart of Africa feeding the green lungs of South America with the ashes of its own ancient past. Tiny aquatic worlds form inside pitcher plants and bromeliads. In tropical forests, the cup-shaped leaves of pitcher plants and bromeliads collect rainwater, forming miniature ponds high in the canopy. These small pools, known as phytotelmata, become thriving microcosms filled with mosquito larvae, algae, and even tiny frogs. Nutrients enter through falling leaves and captured insects, sustaining a complex food web on a scale small enough to fit in your hand. Some pitcher plants host species found nowhere else on Earth, including specialized microbes that break down prey. The balance within these tiny ecosystems mirrors that of much larger ones, with producers, consumers, and decomposers all present. Scientists study them as models for understanding nutrient cycling, adaptation, and cooperation in confined environments. Each drop of water within a leaf is a world unto itself, a suspended universe where entire lives unfold between the veins of green. Sea otters preserve kelp forests by controlling sea urchins. Kelp forests depend on sea otters as guardians. These mammals feed on sea urchins, which graze on kelp stems and can devastate entire forests when left unchecked. Where otters are abundant, urchin numbers remain low, and kelp thrives, sheltering fish, crabs, and seabirds. In areas where otters were hunted to near extinction, kelp forests collapsed into barren seafloors known as urchin barrens. The return of sea otters has brought many coastal ecosystems back to life, restoring both biodiversity and carbon storage. Kelp forests absorb significant amounts of carbon dioxide, making this relationship vital to global climate regulation. The playful floating of an otter on its back conceals an act of ecological engineering, a predator maintaining balance in an underwater forest that stretches for miles. The ocean's surface film acts as a living skin for the planet. At the boundary between sea and air lies a microscopic layer only a few millimeters thick, known as the sea surface microlayer. It is rich in organic compounds, plankton, bacteria, and floating particles that regulate the exchange of gases between ocean and atmosphere. This film acts like a biological membrane, absorbing sunlight, trapping pollutants, and influencing cloud formation. Tiny organisms living within it feed on organic matter and release gases that affect weather patterns. When disturbed by pollution or temperature shifts, the balance of this layer can alter the planet's carbon and oxygen cycles. The microlayer is where much of Earth's climate chemistry happens in silence, an invisible interface that connects every ocean current to the air we breathe. It is the planet's living skin, delicate and essential, binding atmosphere and sea into one continuous system. Rainforests and coral reefs evolved similar patterns of diversity. Though one grows in air and the other underwater, rainforests and coral reefs share striking parallels. Both occupy warm, nutrient-poor environments and depend on intricate recycling systems to sustain life. In each, countless species specialize to fill narrow ecological niches, from canopy insects to reef-dwelling fish. Their layered structures maximize space and light. Trees build vertical forests reaching for the sun, while corals construct three-dimensional labyrinths beneath the waves. The symbiotic relationships that define them between plants and pollinators, or coral and algae, demonstrate how cooperation drives evolution. Both ecosystems act as reservoirs of global biodiversity and stability, yet both are threatened by climate change and human interference. Their mirrored forms remind us that life's strategies repeat across different worlds, inventing similar solutions wherever conditions demand creativity and balance. The planet's carbon balance depends on the smallest living things. While forests and oceans dominate discussions of carbon storage, much of Earth's carbon regulation happens at microscopic scales. Bacteria, plankton, and soil microbes constantly absorb, release, and transform carbon through respiration and decomposition. These processes determine how much carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere. In healthy ecosystems, microbial communities sequester immense quantities of carbon in organic matter and sediments. When disturbed by deforestation, pollution, or warming, their activity shifts, releasing carbon instead of storing it. Scientists now see microbes as the gatekeepers of climate stability, controlling the invisible boundary between balance and breakdown. The fate of the atmosphere rests not only in trees or oceans, but in the metabolism of life, too small to see. Billions of silent engines keeping the world's chemistry in motion. Tree rings preserve records of droughts and ancient climates. Each ring within a tree trunk represents a year of growth, reflecting the conditions of that season. Wider rings indicate plentiful water and nutrients, while narrow or dark rings mark drought, frost, or fire. Scientists use these patterns to reconstruct past climates stretching back thousands of years. This field, known as dendrochronology, has revealed histories of volcanic eruptions, rainfall cycles, and even solar activity. Some bristlecone pines in North America have lived for nearly 5,000 years, their trunks storing climate data older than recorded civilization. By comparing rings across regions, researchers can track global patterns of temperature and precipitation. Trees are therefore not only living organisms, but natural archives, silently chronicling the story of Earth's changing atmosphere and the endurance of life through shifting ages. Rainforests absorb immense amounts of atmospheric carbon. Tropical rainforests cover only a small portion of Earth's surface, yet absorb a significant fraction of global carbon dioxide each year. Through photosynthesis, their dense vegetation pulls carbon from the air and stores it in wood, leaves, and soil. This process helps regulate climate, keeping temperatures stable and weather patterns predictable. The Amazon alone stores tens of billions of tons of carbon, but deforestation and fire are weakening this ability. As trees fall and decay, much of their stored carbon returns to the atmosphere, amplifying warming. Protecting rainforests preserves not just wildlife, but the planet's capacity to breathe. Each towering tree is part of a global lung, drawing in carbon and exhaling the oxygen that sustains all complex life. Under the midnight sun, the Arctic Ocean bursts with life. During summer, when the sun circles endlessly above the horizon, the Arctic Ocean transforms from frozen desert to blooming sea. Ice melts into nutrient-rich waters, and constant sunlight triggers explosive growth of phytoplankton. These microscopic organisms feed zooplankton, fish, birds, and whales in a cascade of abundance that lasts only a few weeks. Entire food webs depend on this brief window of productivity. The rhythm of Arctic life is compressed into a single season of endless day, after which darkness returns and the ocean falls silent again. Scientists race to study these cycles before melting ice and warming waters alter them forever. For now, the Arctic remains a reminder that even the coldest places on Earth can blaze with vitality under the light of an unsetting sun. Firefly light orchestrates entire nocturnal ecosystems. The rhythmic glow of fireflies is more than a summer spectacle. It is a complex communication system that influences entire ecosystems. Each flash pattern helps individuals find mates or warn predators. In some regions, thousands of fireflies synchronize their lights in perfect unison, creating waves of bioluminescence that ripple through the night. This illumination affects nocturnal insects, birds, and even plant behavior. Firefly larvae, which live in soil or under bark, are predators that control slug and snail populations. The chemistry of their light, involving luciferin and oxygen, is so efficient that it produces almost no heat. Researchers study it to improve bioengineering and medical imaging. The glow of fireflies is therefore both art and utility, a living language of light that coordinates the hidden rhythm of the night. Fungal networks can redistribute carbon between tree species. Underground fungal networks do more than connect trees. They act as channels for sharing resources. When one tree absorbs excess sunlight, it produces more carbon compounds, some of which it passes to shaded neighbors through the fungal threads. This redistribution helps forests remain balanced, ensuring that no tree starves while others flourish. Scientists have documented instances where young seedlings survive only because nearby adults send them sustenance through these invisible pathways. The network also transfers chemical signals that coordinate growth and defense. It is a collective metabolism, spanning entire landscapes. Forests are therefore not just collections of individuals, but communities bound by shared chemistry. The flow of carbon through these threads turns the soil into a living bloodstream that unites the forest as one organism. Grazing animals keep grasslands from turning into deserts. Herds of grazers such as bison, zebras, and wildebeest prevent grasslands from becoming overgrown or dominated by shrubs. Their grazing stimulates new growth, and their trampling breaks up soil crusts, allowing seeds and rain to penetrate. Dung fertilizes the ground, returning nutrients to the cycle. When large herbivores are removed, vegetation often becomes uniform, and fires or erosion increase. Properly balanced grazing maintains the mosaic of open and shaded areas that supports biodiversity. In managed systems, mimicking natural herd movements has been shown to restore degraded land and improve carbon storage. The rhythm of hooves and the sweep of feeding herds maintain not only grasslands, but the climate stability they provide. Each migration is a moving act of restoration written across the plains. The ozone layer subtly influences plankton productivity. High above Earth, the ozone layer filters ultraviolet radiation from sunlight. In oceans where plankton dwell near the surface, excessive UV light can damage DNA and hinder photosynthesis. When ozone levels thin, more radiation reaches the water, suppressing plankton growth and altering the entire marine food web. Conversely, recovery of the ozone layer supports healthier plankton blooms, which absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. The connection between an atmospheric shield and microscopic sea life demonstrates how tightly integrated Earth's systems are. What happens in the stratosphere reverberates through ocean depths, linking chemistry and biology across vast distances. The ozone layer's invisible protection is one of the quiet foundations on which marine life depends. Ocean currents carry drifting seeds across entire hemispheres. Floating fruits and seeds can survive for months at sea, carried by currents from one continent to another. Coconut palms, mangroves, and other coastal plants have evolved buoyant seeds that germinate only after long journeys. These oceanic voyages allow plants to colonize distant islands and coasts, forming genetic bridges between ecosystems separated by thousands of kilometers. Some modern beaches host plants whose ancestors arrived centuries ago by sea. The global circulation of currents such as the Gulf Stream and the equatorial countercurrent acts as a dispersal network for life. Each drifting seed is a small arc of potential, crossing blue distances to begin new forests in lands it has never seen. Lichens colonize bare rock, creating the first soil for future forests. When volcanic islands or glaciers expose fresh rock, lichens are often the first life to arrive. Their combined action of fungal structure and algal photosynthesis allows them to cling to stone and survive on minimal nutrients. As they grow, they secrete mild acids that slowly dissolve minerals, creating tiny pockets where dust and water collect. Over centuries, these processes produce the first thin soil capable of supporting mosses, grasses, and eventually trees. The slow work of lichens transforms barren landscapes into living ones, marking the beginning of ecological succession. Without them, new land would remain sterile for millennia. Lichens are therefore the planet's earliest architects of renewal, carving the foundation for future forests from the silent patience of stone. Elephant paths slowly carve new river channels over centuries. As elephants move through landscapes, they follow ancient migration routes that often trace the easiest terrain between water sources. Their massive weight compacts the soil and creates depressions that, over centuries, become channels for seasonal streams and rivers. In wet regions, these pathways collect rainwater, guiding its flow and shaping the geography itself. The animals also break trees and open clearings, altering vegetation patterns along their routes. Satellite studies show that many African watercourses began as elephant trails, long before humans mapped them. The footsteps of elephants are not merely journeys through the land, they are acts of engineering written into the earth, shaping hydrology for generations of life to come. Forest elephants replant trees through their travels and digestion. As forest elephants wander, they consume fruits from hundreds of species and disperse the seeds in their dung. Each deposit contains a nutrient-rich mixture that fertilizes the soil and protects the seeds during germination. Some tropical trees rely entirely on elephants for reproduction because their fruits are too large for other animals to eat. By spreading seeds across vast distances, elephants maintain genetic diversity and prevent forests from becoming crowded with a few dominant species. In regions where elephant populations have declined, forests have grown denser but less diverse. The elephant's daily foraging thus shapes the very structure of the forest, keeping it open, balanced, and vibrant. Every step they take plants a future generation of trees. Salmon migrations feed forests as bears drag carcasses onto land. Each year, salmon return from the ocean to the rivers where they were born, carrying marine nutrients into freshwater ecosystems. After spawning, they die, and predators such as bears and eagles feed on their bodies. The remains are scattered through the forest, where insects, fungi, and soil microbes decompose them. The nitrogen and phosphorus from salmon flesh nourish trees and plants, which grow taller and denser near spawning streams. Scientists can detect marine chemical signatures in the wood of these trees, proving the connection between ocean and forest. The migration of salmon is therefore not only a circle of life in the water, but a source of fertility on land. The ocean, through the salmon, climbs back into the forest every year. Seaweed washed ashore becomes fertilizer for coastal plants. When waves cast seaweed onto beaches, it begins to decompose, releasing a rich mix of nitrogen, potassium, and trace minerals. Coastal plants absorb these nutrients, creating lush dunes and meadows along the shore. For centuries, coastal farmers have gathered seaweed to fertilize crops, recognizing its value as a renewable resource. In natural systems, decaying seaweed also feeds insects and crustaceans, which in turn attract birds. This simple exchange links the productivity of the sea with the fertility of the land. Even the scent of rotting kelp marks an ecological bridge, the ocean's nutrients returning to the soil that will one day wash back to sea again. Ecology reveals that every living thing is part of one continuous conversation. From the smallest microbe to the largest forest, life on Earth exists in constant dialogue. Every exchange of air, water, light, and chemical signal forms part of an unbroken web of communication. The planet breathes, circulates, and adapts through the combined activity of countless species, working in balance or tension. Ecology is not a study of separation, but of connection, a recognition that nothing exists in isolation. The same carbon that flows through leaves returns to the ocean and rises again in the wind. Every movement of energy is a message, and every organism contributes to the story. To understand ecology is to listen to that conversation, spoken quietly through the languages of chemistry, rhythm, and time itself. And so, we've reached the end of our quiet journey through the living world. We've wandered from forests to oceans, from the roots of mountains to the drifting clouds above. In every place we've seen the same truth. Life on Earth is endlessly connected. Every leaf, every current, every small and hidden thing plays its part in keeping the planet alive. When you pause to think of it, ecology isn't just the study of nature. It is the study of belonging. It reminds us that we are not outside this great system, but woven into it. The air we breathe was once inside a forest. The water in our blood fell long ago as rain. The warmth in our bodies began as light from the sun. Every heartbeat echoes with the same rhythm that moves through rivers and roots. Even when the world seems still, it is quietly at work. Soil renewing itself, coral building new reefs, seeds waiting beneath the frost. The balance of life never stops turning. And perhaps, in understanding this, we find something peaceful. A reminder that even in change and decay, the world is always beginning again. As you drift toward rest, you can imagine the forests breathing with you, the waves folding and unfolding far away, and the night sky holding it all in gentle silence. The planet keeps moving, softly and patiently, in the same rhythm that has guided it for billions of years. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let the living earth cradle your thoughts, calm and endless and kind. Good night.